What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the German Bear Podcast. And today we got day 2 of the 2022 Chicago Bears training camp. On today's agenda was a no padded practice, so I think the first padded practice will actually be next week. So stay tuned for that. It was open to the public, so we got more videos of the players, which was kind of great. You see a lot more stuff and a lot more secret insights about it. That's obviously cool with open public practices. And as for the different kind of drills, we had 1-on-1s, 11-on-11, 7-on-7, and some punt and kick returns. In general, it was a very intensive atmosphere, again, just like in day 1. Matt Eberflus and the coaching staff were pushing the players to their limits early in training camp and just preaching to go after the ball every damn snap and to finish every single snap as well. And also, it kind of reflects to the players as well. Like Eddie Jackson mentioned in his press conference, they just have a huge trust into that coaching tree, and it kind of affects the players in a very positive way. And also, Eddie Jackson had some high praises about Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker as well. So, with that being said, let's get right into it and talk about the offensive performance today. And starting off the offense, we have to get going with our star quarterback, Justin Fields. Way more action for him to report about today, and in general, he had a very good day in my opinion. Reports were that he commands the huddle very well, and his leadership is definitely evident, so that's nice to see. And he also threw absolute dimes to Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet today. Very, very good chunk plays that we definitely need in that offense, so that was nice to see. There were also videos about these throws out as well, and I mean, they look just beautiful. Also, what was evident today that he used different arm angles, including a beautiful sidearm into the flats between the offensive linemen, and that's just something that Justin Fields has to use in the modern NFL with these defensive looks and blitzes and all the crazy stuff that is happening. So you need a quarterback that can throw from different arm angles, and he just needs to adjust to every single snap, and that's great to see from Justin Fields early on in camp. Also, his release looks very fast. He had one of the slower releases of the NFL starters last season, but he worked on it in the offseason, and right now it's looking very good and way faster than it was last season. He finished 7-on-7 with 5 completions out of 10 attempts, with starting off 0-4. So he just showed his adversity right there. A very good comeback, starting 0-4 and then going 5 for 10 at the end is pretty good. So we went 5 for 6 with the last 6. And just in general, Justin Fields showed a lot of great things today. The connection with Andrew Janocko, our quarterback's coach, is showing out as well. A lot of times that we're talking about the play afterwards and just coaching him up. So that's nice to see. Just the coach is putting in effort and Justin Fields just delivering it on the field. As for the other quarterbacks, Trevor Siemian threw a pick, and Nathan Peterman had a pretty rough day per reports as well. But I mean, Peterman, I did not expect a lot of things going into camp, and it shows off pretty early. So not a lot about the backup quarterbacks today. And with that being said, let's move on to the wide receivers. Darnell Mooney had a couple of good catches today and really showed his positive chemistry with Justin Fields that he developed with him in the offseason. They're just connecting on a lot of balls, and I mean, Darnell Mooney is just showing out and showing why he will be the wide receiver 1 going into the season. Velus Jones Jr. is also continuing to look very good early in camp, especially with his route running again. Very crisp routes, good hands. I mean, I like what I'm seeing out of him. Obviously, there are also some plays, some reps where he will get beat, but at the end of the day, it's a very positive development early on that I'm liking a lot. Byron Pringle today also had some good plays. I think all around had a pretty okay to good day, especially with his route running. Had a very good reception against Vildor, a 30-yard completion, and on another rep he showed out his route running again, just dropped the ball that time, but really looks fast out of his breaks and just shows his potential off early on as well. N'Keal Harry had a pretty up and down day. He had a very good catch at the sideline where he positioned his body well and fought for the ball, but also some plays on a Justin Fields interception. He was the receiver that was targeted. The ball was just slightly in front of him and just bounced off of his hands into Eddie Jackson's hands. That was kind of a negative play with him, but I did not see the video with that, so I can't really judge whose fault it actually was. And also he had a drop today, so up and down day, but still showing good things early on, which is great. And also Des Newsome is a name that was mentioned today. He also had a very good contested catch with strong hands, so nice hearing his name again, and just bringing him up again feels good as well. Next up will be the tight ends, and especially one stood out today, and that was our starting tight end, Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet versus Eddie Jackson was the theme today. They both were going at it one-on-one a lot, especially on the one-on-one drills. And Kmet had a very strong day, created good separation, which was kind of the problem last season oftentimes, and also showed strong hands, had a catch for 30 yards over 2 DBs, which was kind of the highlight play of the entire day. That was Justin Fields' last pass attempt on 7-on-7s, and just finished strong with a great pass to Cole Kmet, an absolute dime, and Cole Kmet went over 2 DBs and caught it, so great play there. And I just love the early production by Cole Kmet in training camp. He really needs to step up, and it's a first good sign as well. Moving on to the offensive line was kind of an interesting day as well. Lucas Patrick, first and foremost, had to go to the locker room and left the practice field with an injury. There's no updates on that yet, so I will definitely keep you updated. Possibly tomorrow with the next training camp, I can give you some updates, but I don't know how that will go. Therefore, Doug Kramer, our rookie from Illinois, took over the starting center spot. That was kind of expected. He was a center for his collegiate career all around, so he has the experience there. Riley Reiff and Braxton Jones continued sharing snaps at left tackle with an increased amount for Riley today, so that was nice to see. And also Braxton Jones is impressing a lot of people at camp as well. As for at right guard, Tyree Carter today rotated in at starter with Sam Mustipher, so nice seeing another right guard getting reps as well. And as for the rest of the offensive line, it was the same as yesterday, so basically today it was Reiff/Braxton, then Cody Whitehair, then Lucas Patrick until he got injured. Then Doug Kramer came in right guard, Tyree Carter rotated in with Sam Mustipher, and at right tackle we had Larry Borom. Tevin Jenkins today was not at practice, or he has not been seen for the first couple of minutes. I don't know if he appeared later on in practice, but at the moment it looks like he did not practice today at all. So with that, we finished the offense for today, and let's move on to the defense. And the defense today had a pretty strong day, I would say. Offense had them a couple of times, but the defense was pretty good as well. Let's start off with the defensive line. We only got one player that stood out or got mentioned by the reports. Angelo Blackson batted down a pass from Justin Fields on, I think, 11-on-11. And I mean, that's nice to see. Angelo Blackson is a very talented player that showed a lot of promising things last season. But I mean, without Pats, there's not a lot of action for defensive and offensive linemen, or at least like not really recognizable action that's going on. So the D-line was kind of quiet today. Linebackers, Jack Sanborn, UDFA that we signed, has another good practice today. He had an interception on Justin Fields yesterday. That's something I did not mention. That was a report that came out after I made the video. So he had a good day yesterday and adds up another good practice with today and is looking very strong per reports. And I mean, I'm just excited for Jack Sanborn. He's really a player that could make the roster, even though he's a UDFA. Our linebacker room is not too strong. Obviously, you have Nicholas Morrow and obviously Roquan Smith. But after those two guys, it gets kind of thin. So Jack Sanborn definitely has a chance and a shot to stay on the roster, and I'm ready for it. As for Roquan Smith today, he was on the field, but not in cleats. It was just watching and learning, but still good to see him there as well. And with that, let's move on to the defensive backs. First of all, I want to talk about Eddie Jackson. He saw a lot of action today. Sometimes the tight end, when he was playing against Cole Kmet, he had him a couple of times, but he also bounced back. He had a sack coming off of a blitz, he did not sack Justin Fields, obviously, but he would have had a sack. That was nice to see. And he had that interception on Fields off the hands of N'Keal Harry. So he's just showing his playmaking ability early on in camp again. That's what we're all hoping for. We want to see the old Eddie Jackson. And the reports that came out the first 2 days are pretty positive. He took punt returns, which is kind of cool. Also had a sack and an interception. So Eddie Jackson is playmaking early this training camp, and I love to see it. It was also another day, another set of reps for Kyler Gordon in the slot. When Kyler Gordon was moving into the slot, Kindle Vildor actually played outside. That's something I don't love to see, but I mean, maybe they're just trying out different stuff and they just want to see how different players perform at different positions. I think the idea of putting Kyler Gordon in the slot at times, because he's such a physical and good tackler as well, is not a bad idea. But at the end of the day, I want to see him play outside corner, and I definitely don't want to see Kindle Vildor starting. He might be a good backup or okay backup, but definitely not a starter for me. But he had one nice rep on Mooney where he broke up the pass, so that's something nice about him today. Also, cornerback, not quarterback, Lamar Jackson, who we got from, I mean, he was on the Jets, I think, before the Bears. He definitely stood out today. He was one of the bigger storylines, actually. He had several pass breakups that ended in interceptions and also had an interception, I think, the one on Trevor Siemian. So Lamar Jackson, a pretty fast cornerback, actually showed out today and did a lot of great things. So at the moment, he's definitely a player to look out for that looks pretty good at camp. Also named that was mentioned was Greg Stroman. He made a couple of plays in one-on-ones, and also Duke Shelley, who's kind of still battling for that nickel cornerback spot, made a good play on Mooney as well. So the DBs had a pretty strong day overall and performed pretty well, and I think we can all be happy with the newly acquired secondary and be more confident than going into last season. So with that being said, let's move on to the last phase of a football game, the special teams. Special teams today featured a lot of kick returns, and especially the first rep was taken by Velus Jones Jr., who is obviously a specialist at that. He was that at college, and I expect him to be that in the NFL as well. Also, Byron Pringle took returns, and Khalil Herbert, as well as Trestan Ebner. I talked about him yesterday and was wondering why he was not taking any punt returns, but today he took some kick returns, and I like to see that. I definitely want to see him return some kicks and punts for the Bears in the near future because he's really electric and good at that. As for the kickers and punters, Trenton Gill and Cairo Santos both did kickoffs, with Gill being a specialist at NC State. He definitely has a shot at being the guy for the kickoffs, and Cairo just focusing on field goals slowly. So that would be a nice combination as well. But that was kind of a quiet day for special teams, and reps set up as well. In general, today's practice was kind of competitive and had a lot of good plays by the offense and by the defense. Justin Fields had a pretty good day overall, in my opinion. Showed a lot of great things. It was nice seeing Cole Kmet, the wide receivers, show out a bit more. The offensive line still has a lot of rotation. Linebackers are showing out, Jack Sanborn. The defensive backs having a very good day. So it was a pretty interesting and exciting day too for the Chicago Bears. Definitely stay tuned for more training camp updates soon. And yeah, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Like and subscribe if you liked the video. Check out Instagram if you want to as well. And as always, guys, bear down.